The sun had already set over the towering trees, casting elongated shadows across the forest floor, and Emma and her friends were on a camping trip in the deep woods of Mirkwood, far away from civilization. They had lost track of time, and now they realized that they should head back to the campsite before it got too dark. As they were walking through the dense forest, the crunching of leaves under their feet was the only sound to be heard. Then, suddenly, Emma and her friends heard the sound of twigs snapping under someone's feet. They froze in their tracks, trying to locate the source of the noise, but before they could do that, a group of men appeared out of nowhere, wearing masks and holding weapons. The men moved stealthily, and before Emma and her friends could react, they were surrounded. The abductors took them captive, dragging them off to an unknown location deep in the woods. The place where they were taken was a dilapidated shack, which seemed to have been abandoned for years. The abductors tied Emma and her friends to chairs, and then, one by one, they began to torture them. Emma watched in horror as her friends were subjected to unspeakable acts of violence, and she knew that it was only a matter of time before it was her turn. Days turned into weeks, and Emma lost all sense of time. Her abductors were merciless, and they seemed to take pleasure in inflicting pain on their victims. Emma's body was broken, and her mind was shattered. One day, Emma woke up to find that her friends were no longer there. She was alone, and for a moment, she thought that maybe her captors had finally killed them all. But then, she heard a faint whisper coming from somewhere in the shack. Emma followed the sound, and it led her to an old cellar door. She slowly pushed it open, and what she saw inside made her blood run cold. Her friends were lying on the ground, their bodies mutilated and dismembered. Emma realized that the abductors had been using them for their sick experiments, and she was next in line. Emma knew that she had to get out of there, but her body was too weak to move. She lay there, staring into the darkness, waiting for death to come for her. But then, she heard a faint sound, like someone was approaching. Emma's heart leapt with hope, and she tried to call out for help, but her voice was nothing but a hoarse whisper. The footsteps grew louder, and then the cellar door was pushed open. Emma saw a figure silhouetted in the entrance, and she felt a sudden surge of relief. But then, the figure stepped into the light, and Emma realized that her nightmare was far from over. The figure was wearing a mask, but Emma could see that it was a woman. She was holding a scalpel in one hand, and in the other, a length of rope. Emma knew that she was about to be subjected to the same torture that her friends had suffered. The woman moved closer, and Emma closed her eyes, waiting for the pain to begin. But then, she heard a sudden commotion outside, and the woman turned to investigate. Emma heard the sound of gunshots, and then the woman screamed. She stumbled backwards, dropping the scalpel and the rope, and then she fell to the ground. Emma opened her eyes and saw a group of people outside, dressed in military gear. They had come to rescue her, and even though her body was broken, Emma felt a sudden surge of hope. She was rescued, but Emma knew that she could never forget what had happened to her and her friends in that dilapidated shack in the deep woods of Mirkwood. The memories would haunt her for the rest of her life.